Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Extra, an extension of Good Morning Uganda. Once again, I'm Robert Chirabonyonyi. Now, in case you've just gotten on UBC TV, this is part of our morning show. Every weekday we are here from 6:30, just a reminder, till the hour of 10. Now, I'm having a very interesting guest and, of course, a topic that in the years of many people still alive, despite the fact that we did celebrate our independence, 60th independence on Sunday. We still want to look at the post-independence period. And joining me on set this morning is Maxon Muhwezi, who happens to be a member of the NRM Youth League, a former chairman, NRM Makerere University, and also a former, that is Guild presidential candidate, Makerere University, but he's also a political scientist. Maxon, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Robert. Good morning, viewers, and I'm happy once again to have the opportunity to be hosted here for an exploratory discussion.
Now, Maxon, when I look at you, I know, and I want to believe, but I stand to be corrected, you're around 86 onwards. Independence, you aren't there, but we read, we study this. Now, one of the biggest questions that has been in the minds of many Ugandans, that the white man was here, I think, from 1888, when Uganda was declared a British protectorate.
1894.
Around there. It was declared a British protectorate, about 70 years. Then we've now had ourselves running our affairs as an independent state. But the question has been the journey of post-independence. Is there something for us to celebrate about? Or are we where we should be as a nation at 60 years? And I just want to open up with that.
Thank you very much. Before I tackle that, I would like to congratulate all Ugandans on the 60th independence. But also to shout congratulatory message to General Muhoozi Kainerugaba and the entire MK Army on his promotion to the rank of the general.
Full general. And
to me, this promotion depicts his record-breaking and also the record-breaking and also the podium contribution he has made to this country, especially on the military prong and also the social prong. And as the young people, especially in the national resistance movement, our unanimous belief is that he is the best character. He is the best character, foresighted, ahead of his time, and we also believe that General Muhoozi has got the capacity to provide an unerring a destination and direction to this country. So I really congratulate him and the entire people of Uganda on his promotion. Now, the question of independence, Mr. Robert and the viewers, for us who read the Bible so much, the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verses 26 to 28, that book communicates how God created man, but also in his image, gave him authority and power to establish dominion over nature, flora and fauna, and to rule, but also provide leadership to each and everything that is on the earth. Now, using those very powers, the so-called Central Sudanic people and the people that were the Kulaik speaking people from Sudan also, in the 3rd millennium BC, before Christ, were the people that first settled here in Uganda. 3rd millennium BC. And that time Uganda was organized around chiefdoms and kingdoms. These kingdoms and chiefdoms were extraordinarily disjointed and disunited. And because of that, in 1877, we see missionaries start coming. Ideally, they were not missionaries. They were majors, they were captains, they were colonels in the British Army. But they called themselves missionaries for purposes of coloniality. And on the account of Berlin Conference, Partition and Scramble of Africa, 1888, we see 1894, Uganda falling into the hands of the British subjugation. Since that time, 1894, Uganda and Ugandans started experiencing oppression, exploitation, divide and rule. After those 68 years, 1962, or around before that, 1944, 40s, we see a very good generation of valor led by Musaz Ignatius Kangave, the likes of Fredo Bongoto, the likes of Ngul, the likes of Abu Mayanja Kachama, the first Muslim to get a degree here in Uganda. But tracing, because of oppression, because of exploitation, Ugandans reached a point and they really developed resentment against the British rule. Because you see, the British, it was all about exploitation and repatriation. Develop and take. Take resources, take raw materials, take the people, you know. So Ugandans would have quite a lot and huge plantations. But at the end, they don't determine how much they should get and all that. So the resentment really grew. And we see in 1940s, the people I have mentioned, the Kangave Musazis. Actually, on record, Kangave Musaz was jailed. He was jailed 37 times. So record, trying to move around the country, but also allowing feelings of independence, self-rule, through trade unions, farmers and things like that. And eventually, in 1950s, 52, the first political party was formed, but just because of metamorphosis of those trade unions. Now,
actually, for trade unions, he's highly treasured.
Yes. So even when that political party was established in 1950, it didn't have a clear synopsis, ideology. So it didn't stand for long, but it gave rise and it birthed quite a number of political parties, the Democrat Party and the UPC. And the Ugandans were already tired and the pressure was too much on the British, and they decided to hand over instruments of power to Uganda, 1962. Now, to Ugandans, that was a turning point. And Mr. Robert and viewers, Nelson Mandela says that, he said that there's nothing stronger when a nation stands. That when people stand, there's nothing stronger. So 1962, people stood and Ugandans stood. But then, everyone was so hopeful
The question
that it is our time.
at that point, Maxon, were we handed independence by the British? I was watching some footage on independence, and when I saw the first Prime Minister of Uganda, Dr. Milton Obote, as he was receiving these tremens and swearing, he mentions, I don't know if my producer can get you that footage, as he was taking oath, he swore allegiance to the Queen and predecessors to her throne. And that, actually, I was watching this on Sunday, and I wanted to have something I understand special. So I watched that evening, that night. I got that footage and I was going through it critically with a journalistic approach. So one thing that caught my mind is when I see this person, and then among what he had to say as taking oath, he says, I swear allegiance to the Queen and predecessors to her throne. Like,
yeah, it was very interesting because you see, like I've said, the British rule, it was so much gluttonous, but also deep rooted. It was very difficult for Ugandans to uproot it. Okay. At that time, we were just given what we call political independence, just instruments of power. But behind the curtains, administration and the economy and the military, they were still under the subjugation of the British. However, Ugandans at least had hope that very night, that from today henceforth, we're going to start collectively determining the future of our country. Look, 1966, Milton Obote abrogates the Constitution, and that was the turning point, the political, administrative, economic, and social turning point of the country. Because then, after abrogating the Constitution, it gave rise to groups that, hey, I can simply take over power without necessarily defining and understanding what Ugandans want, provided I take over power. So he abrogated the Constitution and he made himself a president, and that's all. So from that time, each group started getting rid of the other. Political turmoil, turbulence. I don't want to talk about torture. Last week, I released an article in Daily Monitor talking about the historicity of Uganda, 1962 up to 86, and where we are now. And one of the interesting things that those days, someone got the Nile patch, and they were trying to cut it. Now, when they were cutting it, they found a watch, hand watch like this, still ticking in the belly of that fish, that huge fish. Why? Fish was fattening simply because of feeding on the fresh and Ugandans that were dumped in Lake Victoria and River Nile those days. Couldn't, 66 up to 86, you couldn't criticize the government and you survive. So all of those governments really were defined by torture, oppression, exploitation, divide and rule, parochialism, until a very unswerving generation of young people said enough is enough. Ugandans, let's mobilize. Yes, all of them did not go to the bush, but at least after that election of 1980, some Ugandans said, no, it's enough is enough. Let's go and liberate this country. There were so many challenges, but they decided to say, no, let's go and solve the political question, because everything rises and falls on leadership. So we see them capturing power in 1986. And for me, that is when I start recognizing leadership. That's when I start discussing real Uganda. At that time, 86, I want to repeat that Uganda was what we call a lame duck. A duck, but also lame, imagine. It means you cannot do
So
anything.
for you, if you're looking at achievements in post-independence, you want to begin from, in your view?
In my opinion, as an because you see...
That from 1986.
Yeah, because you see...
That is, all these years were simply wasted years of post-independence. Where we had Milton Obote twice, we had Tito Okello twice, we had Idi Amin, Yusuf Rule,
Isa Muwanga, and all that, Okero, all those I've told you. Because how, for instance, can you account for a government that has lasted for
3 months?
3 months. That's not a country.
That was Yusuf Rule.
Yes, actually, some people, they say, stories are told that at times, people would not even know who the president was. And he say, hey, the other one was toppled. The other one is no longer president. Hey, we have another one. You get? So it is
because of that political turmoil, then you can't allude any.
It is very, very hard. It is very, very hard because I can tell you, then that's when the tax base had shrunk. Uganda's tax base had shrunk to only 5 billion shillings. Imagine 5 billion running a country. That's when we didn't have a national army. We had a tribal army. Actually, that tribal army was described by the three dimensions. One of the Basula from east, Enyena from the west, and the Mamboa here. You get? So those three couldn't unite to form a national army. So what? You couldn't join the army if you're not from a particular side of the country. Now, that is when we had no rule of law. I've told you, everyone, you had authority, you had liberty to take over power. You get? No rule of law. I mean, Uganda was a jungle, and the law of the jungle means, it means survival for
the fittest.
If you're not fit, you cannot survive in the jungle. So 1986, we see NRA coming with a very, very, very clean synopsis. The so-called 10-point program of the national resistance movement that was later stretched to 15 points and later again compressed and converted into 4 core values that are still driving the country, that have shaped, also provided direction, the political, administrative, economic, and also social direction of the country. It is when we can see tranquility. It is when we can see rule of law back, constitutionality. It is when you can see democracy. I was checking the statistics of special interest groups since 1962. And interestingly, 1962, only 2 women were in parliament. 2. Imagine. Someone called Florence Rubega, another Asian called Visla. 2. As we speak, 33% of parliamentarians are women.
Are women, yes.
As we speak, 35% of the cabinet are women. 1969, you can imagine, you hear that, 1969, only 4% of the population were in the cash economy. 4%, you can imagine, only 4% had the capacity to contribute to the tax base, but also to the national income.
60 years down the road, you're still struggling to have the 39% out of the money economy brought in the money economy.
Really, from 4% to 61%. That is why we are celebrating. Of course, it is still a challenge. It is one of the strategic bottlenecks to have a weak private sector, but also we still have levels of poverty, and we still have people who are in subsistence economy. They don't contribute anything to the economic development of the country. But it is a process. From I can tell you, 9.9 million homesteads now are in the cash economy. Now, compare it to 4 4% of the population at that time. I was looking at the statistics again, and interesting. Uganda, the leading exporting country of coffee on the African continent. You have got surplus. During that time, I've mentioned we didn't have basic items. No soap, no salt. Imagine a country surviving without. But I can tell you 40 to 45% of goods sold in supermarkets and shops here several in Uganda are manufactured here in the country.
Well, Maxon, it would be, of course, abnormal for us to say that 60 years of independence, we've deteriorated from what we are before. Of course, I believe there should be gains, and these we have achieved. But from a journalistic point of view, the all to be done that has been done may not make news to me.
It has. It has to.
The ought to be done.
No, because there are countries that have not done it.
They have not. So I don't want to backbench. I don't want to backbench failures.
What you also need to know.
Or benchmark failures.
What you also
I want to benchmark successes.
Yes.
Because otherwise we might be complacent and comfortable in our zone.
What you need to know. What you need to know is that there's what we call social contract. Social contract is where a government is in play, or in power to make policies, but also implement policies. And there are two dichotomies. The first dichotomy is where the government decides to serve the interests of those within the government, okay? Which was in the past. And the second dichotomy is where the government plans and also works within the interest of the people. And therefore, we have seen so many governments and so many countries failing to do what exactly they should be doing. That's, now I'm responding to your question. You said, if the government should construct roads, then should we praise it? Yes, we should, because 200 kilometers, 1986, imagine, and 40% of that was only motorable. Only 40% of the 200 kilometers were motorable. We are going to 5,000 kilometers plus now. You get, so it is, and that's why Ugandans have a social contract that we have given you power, but with power we have also added you money, resources. Please do this and this and this and this and this. Now the government comes and says, in the next 5 years we have this program for you. Please choose us. You get. So we have all reasons, and so many reasons to celebrate. Of course, I've said we still have a few huggers here and there, but it is work in progress, and I can tell you.
Let's look at the socio-economic transformation that we've gone through. Rightly said, we can look at capita per income, it is GDP, but let's go back to look at this state at 60 years of independence, where today, when we look at school dropout rates, His Excellency has always talked about this. You have about 1 million entering. When they reach P7, that is primary 7, 300 are knocked off. They go to senior 4. By the time you had 1 million, at senior 6 you have 10,000. And education is one of the pillars of a developing state. Let's look at health today. Yes, factors like high population could be given. Infrastructure, we can talk about roads being done, fine, you've mentioned of the success, but health, education. Let's look at people's incomes, high levels of unemployment in this country. That even the universities you have, I think this could be looked at failure to manage success. That yes, you have so many universities, you have some people graduating from university, but going back to do work that they are not meant to do. It is success in one way. People who had a child infant mortality, today the children are growing, but for, you know, a huge population that is not a quality population
There was also a
is
time,
a danger
there was also
to the country and growth of a nation.
There was also a time when those children were not growing. But let me first tackle. Let me give you the prescription of education. Statistically, in 1986, we see only 29,000 graduates. The whole country. 29,000.
But do you remember the World Fair?
And with one university.
But you know what it meant by then to be a graduate?
Wait. Now, as we speak, 44 universities, Makerere alone graduates 15,000 students. I want to believe that you don't need a microscope to know that that is an achievement. Okay? Now, after you have educated, because during that time, education was not a right like it is now. Because you see, rights in Uganda have become like air. You breathe, so you think it is, these things have been there. No. During Amin's time, they would tie a rope on a particular entrance of the classroom. If you don't reach that rope, then you don't qualify to enter class.
No, that is something I can't testify to that.
You
but
can.
you see,
let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish. So education, we are looking at a number of people that have attained education. But now the question is, after sorting one thing, the question is, what are these graduates doing? That should be the question.
You had
the semi, the skilled, and also non-skilled at all. What are they doing? Hence, one, they are observed by all these industries that are coming, that are mushrooming. They are absorbed into government. A few or many that get government jobs. They are absorbed into national service. I've seen many people joining there. I mean, you have seen others absorbed into government programs. I don't want to talk about the YLP. I don't want to talk about the Myoga. I don't want to talk about
which
the
success
NANS.
is questionable.
I don't want to.
In terms of transformation,
every program,
vis-a-vis what you are injecting into as a country, as a taxpayer's money.
Every program will always have someone to criticize. But you need to look at the impact for purposes of development. Unless you say, there's what we call the wapingamizi. And the one who doesn't see anything as far as the development is concerned, anything positive.
But there's also a baseline to determine that if you are looking at billions invested in these various projects, right from Entandikwa, go to Nusaf, vis-a-vis the transformation that has been done, I don't think they're in tandem.
No, they are, and actually to inform you, when you look at, for instance, the Youth Live program, I don't know whether you have the statistics on your fingertips. It had issues of, one, supervision, the refunding mechanism, but in a nutshell and generally, so many young people, I want to use that word, so many young people benefited. I don't want to give a deaf ear to the challenges around those programs, okay? Because one, you see, we just have to accept that Uganda is a developing country. It is not a developed country. And therefore, there must be a process. You know, the 5 stages of development, we're not even on the 3rd.
But if you're doing the same thing again and again,
you get,
and you know, and are we learning from our mistakes? Because around 1986, that is when we began, I think a year later, when we began to see programs aimed at transforming livelihoods of people. Luwero Triangle had so many, we had so many that have come in, but it still is something.
The question is, have they impacted? Because you see, a policy, to design a policy, it must target a certain significant population. And what is the target, and what is the role, and what is the goal of that? For instance, let's reduce our discussion to this parish development model. This is a very huge purpose vehicle that is going to transform homesteads, special
doubt.
creation. Yes, no doubt. Now, when you compare it to YLP and other things like Intandiko and others that contributed 40%, then Youth Rail Fund came and contributed 57%. Now we are so much pretty sure that this, you have seen, I was checking the NAD's 56% achievements. Now we are looking at this parish development model. The target is 76%. Like in terms of achieving the goals of its establishment, you get. So even before it has started, instead of rallying all Ugandans to rally the entire machinery of Ugandans to support it, the first thing we are doing is to first criticize.
That once beaten, twice shy.
No. We are saying all Ugandans, because you see, the recent ones, for instance, YLP, it was, for instance, for the young people only. The NADs, it was for the few. Parish development model is a pan-Ugandan case. You, me, all of us, all Ugandans. And I remember I released an article in Daily Monitor talking about how Ugandans should just get out of the seats and go and support parish development model. Because you cannot, you haven't dated a lady, but you're saying this lady is against me. You first date her, you first try her. You get. And I am so much happy that it is well thought compared to these other programs.
Yeah, very concur with you about being well thought.
Well thought.
At least one of the things I find that is, I think government is trying to also in issues of finances,
yes,
be
so much money,
so much minded compared to the previous programs.
Yeah, it is what I was coming to. When you look at our money, our correction, 14.7 trillion, and you look at our budget, 48 trillion. You get, we are still coming from 5 billion, 14 trillion. At least we are going somewhere.
Yes, those
so
are
we don't need to say that no. Tomorrow morning we need to be like America. No, you saw what you can afford. Yes, you cut your jacket according
what
to
have been the challenges? Because I know we can talk about successes.
Even 2 years.
Amplify or what? Automatically for any state we wouldn't be at 60. But what do you think are the challenges that we must address urgent or have been a cancer to these developments that you're talking about? Because almost every success, for me, I look at these 60 years as where we've had successes or success, but we've failed to manage the success that we've gotten.
I don't know, how can you manifest?
You've had more hospitals, yes, constructed more hospitals. You have Morago, Chirudu, Kawempe, you have Chirudu, you have whatever. These are good hospitals. Treatment services. Sometimes you have schools for every parish. What quality of education provided?
Now, let me
the roads, then you get the loans, then you get these grants before. Managing success.
Let me tell you. At first we had 0.
Yes.
Second, we have something. The next thing is quality. I can assure you. At first we had nothing. So you're from the ditch, deep down. And when you reach the top, you say, the light is not enough. At least first appreciate what is there. And what you need to know.
Would we be at levels of appreciating?
Absolutely. Because you're from 0.
Should we now be at levels of appreciating?
Mr. Robert and viewers.
6 years down the road, we are still appreciating?
Not 60 years. Because it's 60 years when you say...
Okay, fine. Even if you say from 1986, you have this beautiful woman.
Let me explain.
Let
me explain.
And you're still saying I have a pretty woman who was not.
Let me explain, because then when you interrupt, the first thing is that I still take you back to 0 completely. And when this government came into power, there was so many priorities. Nothing but where do we start from? There was political rehabilitation, military rehabilitation, economic rehabilitation, social rehabilitation. For me, one of the successes really I always mention is the capacity this government and state to solidify but also consolidate heterogeneity. Because you see, with a disjointed society, development cannot take place. Okay? It has taken so many years. You know, our politics were extraordinarily dirty, turbulent, and tyrannic. Okay? There has been a very, 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 very thorough and systemic path to stabilize that. The water is now tranquil. The political waters now tranquil. Now we go to the economy, from zero to something. You get, now you go to education. Education, like I told you, you don't have time, but you have to follow the statistics. They will give you how many schools you had. We had, for instance, 1.2 school-going children. You're going to 15 million. So after all those have gone to school, what next? That should be the question. Okay? So on the challenges you're trying to mention, we have so many issues. The first thing really I don't like is unpatriotic population. We still have an unpatriotic population. And what comes out of that unpatriotic population are things like corruption, nepotism. Because then your interest is to serve yourself and also your family. And also maybe the few people around you. Okay? But the moment you have that heart and feeling of attachment to the country, you say, let me serve this country and I go. So we still have serious corruption. And I really don't like what this kind of... we still have ideological disorientation. People still thinking along lines of tribe, lines of religion. So-and-so is a woman, I cannot support her. So-and-so comes from the West, I cannot support her. You have seen so many. That means the population is still somehow ancient. You get? Those indicators cannot really steer development. Okay? Then we also have issues of a weak private sector. That's why we are still collecting very, very little money. It is not as strong. But slowly, we are building capacity. We are building capacity. The other serious issue that we have in the country is the cost of public administration. As a scholar, as a political scientist, it is so huge. I can tell you it is so huge. One, when you look at the public administrators that we have, the kind of money they are taking, for instance, the parliament here.
Benefits and all that.
The benefits, all those. Then all those officers have lines of administration, the secretaries and what, then the fuel, then the vehicles. As a developing country, you don't need that. I can tell you, you don't need that. But I know we have come from very far. The country is on the right path. We are building slowly. We know where to touch. We trust the government. The leadership is trusted. The leadership is loved. And I can tell you, we have all reasons to celebrate every year.
Well, time is not so much on my side, but I'm very happy that you know the challenges facing us. And of course, with that confidence you've given to Ugandans that the government has the capacity to address those challenges. However, one of the biggest problems that we still have is untamed corruption. And this, we've seen it sometimes even in agreements we make as a country that cost us so much. Technocrats go and they set it here and tapped. And for many Ugandans, away from the craving of essential facilities being available and easily accessible, the big thing remains corruption. We've sung this. It has been a problem of Uganda, but it seems to be growing day by day. People who began stealing thousands went to millions, went to billions. Now we shall see trillions missing. I want to get your view on this.
Corruption is one thing I want to tell you is that corruption is everywhere. It is not only in Uganda. Of course, that's not by justifying, not justifying corruption. But when we look at strategies comparatively, look at other countries, the way they are fighting corruption and how we are fighting corruption, I think we have done. We are trying. One, I've told you, the first cause and the biggest cause of corruption is lack of patriotism. And lack of patriotism is usually instrumentalized by the fact that governments, because of so many issues, usually forget to do what we call governmentality. Governmentality is where by citizens at a very, very, very young and tender age learn to love their country and work for their country. You get? That's where corruption stems from. So if you don't treat that when it is still at the lowest level, when it reaches very far, because you see, when someone occupies a particular position of government, they immediately learn from the people they are.
The way things are done.
Exactly. But the moment people are tamed at the first stages of development, but also administration, and even from schools, you get, and that's why really we need guidance. But the money that is in these patriotic clubs and all this, it is very little. At Makerere, we went to Changwanzi and other training centers. But I can tell you here that all people, almost everyone that went to those trainings is extraordinarily different. The way they operate, the way they look at their country, the way they look at their society and everything. Trust me, they are very, very different. So when you look at the anti-corruption unit, State House, then you look at IGG, then you look at the Parliament, then you look at, I mean, we have tried as a country.
But then there's a notion that we are having a selective justice when it comes to those institutions working.
Do you know someone called the Honorable Kabafunzachi? Do you know him?
I know him.
Who is he?
I know him very well. A person who came and said, this is evidence you've been involved in a corrupt case. Here is money.
Was he a minister?
He was.
Yes. So is that selective justice?
Sacrificial lamb. Say goodbye to my listeners and viewers.
Thank you so much for hosting us once again. It is always a revealing experience to come here and share with Ugandans. And the most important thing is to know that this is our country. We don't have any other country. And so everything we do, anything we do, we must do it for the good of the country. I have also a message to Ugandans that are spreading cases of tribalism and sectarianism, all forms of sectarian parochialism. Fellow Ugandans, at 60 years, that's not where we are supposed to be. We can do better. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been nice having you, Nixon Muhwezi, who happens to be a member of the NRM Youth League. And of course, our viewers, thank you so much for being with us from the hour of 6:30 till now. We appreciate that. I don't take that for granted. Have a lovely day with God's will. See you tomorrow from 6:30. God bless you. Let's love our country. It's all we have. And make it a better place for all to live. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.